With wall-to-wall media coverage and hundreds of thousands of people flocking to catch even a glimpse of him, Pope Francis seems to have captivated much of the nation.
He's a spiritual giant. He's not just a Catholic. I think he's a prophet for these times.
And like a prophet of old, Francis has been calling the U.S. and the entire world to move in a new path, one that seeks a better world for all people. At the United Nations Friday, Francis outlined a host of serious problems that need to be addressed to ensure that the future will be secure for all.
Y lo será.
And so it will if the representatives of the states can set aside partisan and ideological interests and sincerely strive to serve the common good.
In all of his major policy speeches, Francis has called for peace, mercy, and justice. And he's stressed his now familiar priority issues: concern for the poor and disadvantaged, immigration, refugees, and the environment. President Obama thanked Francis for his moral authority.
In your humility, your embrace of simplicity, in the gentleness of your words, in the generosity of your spirit, we see a living example of Jesus' teachings.
Liberals have been pleased, but Francis cannot be put in any rigid political boxes. At the White House, he also raised the U.S. bishops' concerns about maintaining religious liberty and supporting the institution of marriage. Both are key issues for conservatives.
Mr. Speaker, the Pope of the Holy See.
As the first pope to address a joint meeting of Congress, Francis praised much of America's legacy. He referred to Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream for the nation.
And I am happy that America continues to be, for many, a land of dreams.
Francis again raised his priority issues, and he repeated his concern for the family, which he said is being threatened perhaps as never before from within and without. The Pope has been met with enthusiastic crowds at every stop. Many of those unable to attend in person have been trying to participate in the visit in other ways. In places including D.C.'s Franciscan Monastery, people have been gathering to watch various events. Others have been doing special service projects in honor of the Pope. Many Catholics have high hopes for the lasting impact of this visit.
I would like our church to unite and be behind him, and hopefully get more people back to the church.
Hispanic Catholics, who make up about 34% of the U.S. Church, say this Latin American Pope has been especially meaningful for their community.
We also are incredibly moved because at a time when the discourse around immigration has been dominated by fear and hatred, that he has come and breathed new life into the debate.
Non-Catholic people of faith have also been engaged in this papal visit at an unprecedented level. Religious groups across the spectrum are hoping to gain momentum for their key issues by tying them to the Pope's agenda.
Restoring hope.
As the Pope spoke before Congress, faith-based activists helped lead a rally in front of the Capitol, urging politicians to follow up on Francis's concern for the environment by adopting new policies to address climate change. Reverend Gerald Durley is a veteran of the civil rights movement.
He is that kind of energizing, kinetic force that's inspired all of us, regardless of race, color, faith. That's Pope Francis, I think, his calling.
Interfaith humanitarian leaders praised the Pope's focus on poor people and pledged to keep working on that issue. They called on the nation to shift priorities in order to end hunger and poverty by the year 2030.
This is an extraordinary moment. The leader of a major religion in the world who espouses these same causes is here speaking about them.
Still, the visit hasn't been without controversy. During a prayer service at St. Matthew's Cathedral, Francis told the bishops he supported their generous commitment to bring healing to victims of the sex abuse crisis. This generated an angry response from the survivors of those abused by priests, who claimed that, in fact, the bishops, quote, have shown cowardice and callousness and continue to do so. Another point of controversy was Native American reaction to the Pope's elevation to sainthood of Father Junipero Serra, an 18th century Franciscan friar who helped bring Catholicism to California. It was the first canonization in the U.S. Father Serra is honored by many Catholics, especially Hispanic Catholics, for his missionary work. Father Ken Lavaroni helped lead the effort for him to be declared a saint.
Despite hardships, despite physical difficulties, despite political difficulties, Junipero Serra always went forward and was determined to fulfill his dream in following the footsteps of Jesus Christ and in particular following the footsteps of St. Paul and St. Francis of Assisi.
Many Native Americans argued that early missionaries brutally imposed their religion and helped to destroy indigenous cultures. During his homily, spoken in Spanish, Francis said Serra had sought to protect the dignity of the Native community. About 25% of Native Americans are Catholic. Some of them called for healing from the wounds of the past.
The intergenerational hurts that have stemmed really right from the first encounter on this continent, way back in 1492. We reflect, we remember, but let us let go. Let us heal, and we need to move forward.
For many, the most important part of the visit so far has not been the speeches or the meetings, but rather the images of Francis as a pastor. Images of him instructing his security detail to bring forward a small immigrant girl who had slipped through the barricade.
God bless America.
Images of him leaving the halls of Congress to visit Catholic charities, where he was surrounded by homeless people, immigrants, and needy families.
Much of what Pope Francis is about is not necessarily about what he says, it's about what he does. The quote that's attributed to St. Francis of Assisi is, "Preach always, and use words when you need to." I think Pope Francis is a great example of that.
And many Catholics say that example is touching the entire world. I'm Kim Lawton reporting.